Okay, so 6th grade students at home, I wanted to give you some of the same stuff that we've been doing here in class. So I know you got a bunch of things that were sent to you in Schoology this week, a lot of stuff to read. There's a Bill Nye Science Guy video that I want you to watch. And there are some questions based on some reading that you have to do. But I want to give you a little bit of background similar to what we've been talking about in class so you get some of the same experience as if you were here in person. So before we talk a lot about actually learning to read music and some of the other things we're going to do with music, we really need to understand what music is. So one of the things we talked about this week in the music classes that were here in school is this. What is sound? Okay, sound is a pretty amazing thing. We hear sounds all the time. We learn to recognize what sounds are. When you first hear a sound, it'll be new to you. And then the next time you hear it, your brain has kind of stored that information away. So you understand what a sound actually is and what that sound is. So if I knock on this desk, you've heard that sound before and you know that it's someone knocking on a door. If somebody rings your doorbell, you understand that sound because your brain's stored away what that is. All sound starts with vibration, and this is in some of the reading that I gave you and in that Bill Nye video that we talked about. Something moves, okay? So if I knock on this desk, the desk itself is actually moving, but what's happening is it's moving all the air molecules that are around it. And in this room, there are hundreds of millions of air molecules that all bump into each other. So even if I go further away from you over here, as I'm talking, you can still hear me because the air between me and the microphone that's recording this is all moving. You can be anywhere in this room and hear me talk. You can even be outside the room, and if I talk loud enough, you can hear the sound come under the door and through the crack in the door. And if it's a really loud sound, you can actually hear it through the walls. You can hear very loud sounds come through solid objects, okay? And that all starts with vibrations. Now what happens to us is that when we hear this sound, so here's a sound that's happening, and it creates this wave through the air of air molecules, and when it gets to our ear, okay, this is our ear, and you'll see this in the Bill Nye Science video too, the sound waves compress down into your ear canal, and they vibrate a little tiny piece of skin called an eardrum. And then there are 3 bones in here, which we won't talk about right now, but then there's a section of your ear that looks like this, and there's a section of your ear that looks like this. And this part, that looks kind of like a snail, is called the cochlea. And what the cochlea does is inside it are trillions of tiny little hairs that all have nerves attached to them. And so when sound comes through, we'll change colors here. When a sound comes through, it travels through this cochlea, the snail-like device, and it makes these hairs vibrate, and then that sends a signal to your brain, and your brain goes, oh, I know that sound. That's the doorbell. That's someone knocking on the door. That's my neighbor's dog barking. That's my dog barking. Because every single one of these vibrations is a little bit different. Okay? And so when we talk about music, we learn to associate certain sounds and certain patterns of vibrations with certain things. So we understand that it's a flute playing, or a trumpet playing, or a clarinet playing, or a girl singing, or a boy singing. We understand when we hear a drum set. We understand songs. We hear our favorite song, and we know that when we hear those patterns of notes or those patterns of rhythms that go with the beats, that's our favorite song. And our brain has stored this pattern away for us to remember later on. Okay? Now, there are vibrations all over the place all the time, okay? And whenever they happen, we hear them as a sound. So there are two ways that we classify sound. And pretty much it comes down to what we call noise and what we call music, okay? When we talk about noise, noise is unorganized sound. It's when there's a bunch of things happening and there's no plan to them. So days when you were in school before, when you were in the cafeteria for lunch, that's noise. All those people talking separately and saying different things randomly every single day creates noise. If you go to a big city and you stand on the street corner, you'll hear noise. You'll hear traffic, you'll hear horns blowing, you'll hear sirens, you'll hear people talking. That's noise. If we organize it and make it happen in a pattern, then we end up creating music, okay? And music doesn't have to be a song or a melody. I can do this because I'm organizing that into a pattern. Technically, that's music. Some people might say, well, no, it doesn't have a melody. But yeah, it's still music, okay? I can play rhythms and have them be music. If I do this, without any plan, without any organization to it, that's noise, okay? So everything we do that we're going to talk about with music is going to be based on sound. Sound is a very powerful thing, okay? It has energy to it. It can be moved around. It can be bounced off of objects. It can be very powerful, okay, and very strong. It can be very soft. But sound is everything that we do in music is based around different types of sound, okay? You can even do a little experiment with me. So if you're wearing headphones at home, this won't work. But if you take your headphones off and listen to this next section without headphones, it might work. It's a lot better in person, but it might work a little bit while you're at home. So again, you're listening to the sound of me talking. My voice is vibrating air molecules. All the air molecules in between me and my computer are vibrating. The microphone in my computer is vibrating. It's creating and recording that sound. And then on your end, it's playing it back and it's vibrating a speaker in your Chromebook or your computer or whatever you're listening to this on. And that in turn is vibrating the air molecules in between your computer and your ear, going in your ear, vibrating your eardrum, vibrating all those little hairs in the cochlea, and then because you understand the English language, you're hearing the sound of me talking and you understand what I'm saying, okay? But if we redirect the sound, this part of your ear, the outside of your ear, really doesn't do much except collect sound. And again, Bill Nye talks about that in that video, so please watch that video. But if you take your hands and cup them like this as you're facing your computer and put them behind your ears, you'll notice that as you move them in and out, it changes the way the sound is coming from me to you because it's either collecting more of the sound or causing it to not be able to get into my ear very easily. The other thing you can do is if you turn them around the other way, it changes the way it sounds, and it sounds like I'm farther away even though I haven't moved, because now the sound has to go past your head and bounce off whatever object is behind you and come backwards into your ears from behind. So the difference between listening like this and listening like this is huge, and it sounds like I've moved around the room when I really haven't. Okay? Now this might not work as well as it does in person, but if you do one hand forward like this and then switch them the other way, it might sound like I've actually moved to the other side of the room or to the left or right hand side of your computer screen. Okay? There are all kinds of crazy things we can do with sound. I'm going to share some other videos with you that you can watch, but I wanted you to have a little bit of the same experience that we've been doing in class. So watch the Bill Nye video. If you have questions about it, send me a message in Schoology. I'll be happy to answer them. Read through, there's a document called Basic Sound. Read through that, has a whole bunch of big words in it, but read through it, and it explains a little bit about what sound is. And then if you look in your Schoology, in that assignment I gave you this week, you have a set of 3 questions to answer that are going to be graded. You can talk about those with your parents. And the questions are, is there sound in outer space? Why or why not? If you say yes, tell me why. If you say no, tell me why. The second question is one that's been around forever. If a tree falls in a forest and no one is there to hear it, there's nothing within 1,000 miles of that tree. No bugs, no insects, no rodents, no animals, no human being, no recording device to hear that sound. Does the tree still make a sound when it hits the ground if there's nothing there to actually hear it? Okay? And yes or no, and tell me why or why not. And then the last one, you can kind of see this a little bit in the Bill Nye video. We did some stuff here in class that would be too hard for me to try to replicate for you on the screen. But try to think of a way that you could make sound visible, so that if my speaker wasn't working in my computer and I made a really loud sound here, how could I prove to you that a sound actually happened? How could I make that sound visible? You might get a hint from a section of the Bill Nye video, and then just explain to me how you would do that. Okay? And then, finally, there's a quiz that's due on Friday that's based on that reading of the basic sound thing, and you can have that document open. All the answers are in there. Pretty easy. Most of them are true and false. There's a couple multiple choice. Everything this week shouldn't take you more than 10, 15, 20 minutes to answer the questions. The Bill Nye video is about 20 minutes long, and it'll probably take you maybe about 15, 20 minutes to read that one document. But that's all that's due this week, and the 3 questions thing and the test shouldn't take you more than 10, 15, 20 minutes to do both of them together. They're not that difficult. Okay? Next week we're going to actually start looking at rhythms and reading some note patterns and clapping and performing some rhythms and understanding how to put those together, and then we'll move on from there. Okay? Again, if you have any questions, just send me a message. You do need to check in with me on Friday. The time change from 12:45 to 1:15. There's a Zoom link in your Schoology. You need to click on that. I will be online, and I just need to talk face-to-face with you for a couple of minutes. If you have a couple of questions or you have comments, you can ask me at that time. But otherwise, we'll go from there. Okay? Have a good week. We'll talk to you later.